It was a strange and haunting summer for English football. Just months before the 1958 World Cup kicked off, the Munich Air Disaster in February claimed the lives of the brightest stars of Manchester United's Busby Babes generation. Men who were supposed to be the core of the Three Lions at that tournament. Amidst the overwhelming grief, a patchwork England squad, carrying the pain of loss and a heavy psychological burden, set off for Scandinavia. They played not just for the flag, but for their fallen comrades. Although their journey ended after a playoff against the Soviet Union, the resilient spirit of those men became a tragic yet heroic epic. More than half a century has passed. Where are those young men now? Let us turn back the pages of memory regarding the 12 most prominent faces of the 1958 England squad. Billy Wright. Position, centre-back/captain. In the 1958 England squad, Billy Wright was not just the captain. He was a living monument, the solidest rock English football had ever produced. At 34, Billy Wright wore the captain's armband with a dignified and majestic demeanor. As the first player in the world to reach 100 caps for his national team, he was the sole spiritual anchor for a collective left bewildered by the Munich disaster. Not possessing the ideal height for a center-back, his innate ability to read the game and his millimeter-perfect sliding tackles made him a nightmare for every striker. In Sweden, he played every minute, shouldering the defense with all the experience and dedication of an elder brother. After that tournament, Billy Wright continued to play for one more season for Wolverhampton Wanderers, the only love of his club career, before hanging up his boots in 1959. Wright's life off the pitch was as brilliant and glamorous as his football. His marriage to Joy Beverley, one of the famous Beverley sisters, was likened to the Beckham and Victoria of the 50s. They were the golden couple of British entertainment and sports at the time. Billy Wright later tried his hand at managing Arsenal and working as a TV pundit, where he continued to be respected for his politeness and profound knowledge. He lived a full life, awarded the CBE by the royal family for his tireless contributions. Billy Wright's image on the pitch was a perfect reflection of the man in real life. Loyal, disciplined, and responsible. If on the pitch he was a warrior who never retreated, in life he was a standard gentleman, an exemplary husband and father. It seemed all the glory of 1950s English football converged in him. However, the journey of the great captain had to come to an end. On September 3, 1994, Billy Wright passed away at the age of 70 after a grueling battle with stomach cancer. His passing left infinite grief, and his ashes were scattered at Molineux, so he could forever be one with the club he spent his entire life serving. Tom Finney. Position, striker/winger. Tom Finney, the Preston plumber, arrived at the 1958 World Cup at the age of 36. He was one of the greatest players the world has ever seen, a man praised by opponents as someone who could play football with a crutch. At this tournament, Finney was the soul of the attacks, scoring England's only goal in the draw against the Soviet Union in the group stage. Although advanced in age and plagued by injury, whenever the ball reached Finney's feet, viewers saw a softness, agility, and sophistication that was heart-stirring. He represented a generation of players who played for pure passion, without calculation or desire for fame. After the World Cup, Finney dedicated his final years to Preston North End before retiring in 1960. The strangest and most admirable thing about Finney was his absolute loyalty. Despite receiving offers with sky-high salaries from Italian teams, he shook his head to stay with his hometown team, where he played football while working as a plumber to earn extra income. After hanging up his boots, he did not choose the coaching path, but returned to a simple life, continuing the family business and participating in charitable activities. He became president of Preston North End, a symbolic position to honor his contributions. Finney lived an incredibly humble life compared to his immense talent, always refusing praise and spending time caring for his wife, who suffered from Alzheimer's, in their old age. The contrast between a genius artist, Tom Finney on the pitch, and a diligent worker, Tom Finney in real life, is the most human beauty in his story. He was the embodiment of loyalty and kindness, a rare quality in modern football. But time is cruel and spares no legend. On February 14, 2014, Sir Tom Finney took his last breath at the age of 91. His passing left the entire city of Preston in tears, and the legacy he left behind was not just goals, but the example of an eternally noble character. Johnny Haynes. Position, Playmaker. Johnny Haynes, the 23-year-old from Fulham, was the creative brain of the England team in Sweden 1958. With sharp tactical vision and the ability to place the ball at a teammate's feet, Haynes was likened to an architect on the pitch. He was the first player in England to receive a salary of £100 a week after the wage cap was abolished, a testament to his value and influence at that World Cup. Although England struggled to score, Haynes's defense-splitting passes remained a brilliant highlight. He played with the demeanor of a movie star, dashing, confident, and captivating. Haynes's career was forever linked with Fulham, where he became an immortal legend. However, fate dealt a heavy blow to this talented midfielder. In 1962, a serious traffic accident caused severe injuries to his legs and back, robbing him of his inherent speed and agility. Despite efforts to return to the pitch, Haynes never regained his peak form. After retiring, he moved to South Africa to play for a short time before settling in Scotland. Haynes's life after football was quite private. He enjoyed peaceful days with his family and maintained close ties with Fulham, where a statue of him stands right outside Craven Cottage. Johnny Haynes was a haughty commander on the pitch, always demanding perfection from his teammates. But off it, he was a warm and profound man. He was a symbol of the transition between classic and modern football, the face of England's first generation of superstar players. Yet, tragedy from accidents seemed to haunt him. On October 17, 2005, Johnny Haynes suddenly passed away at the age of 71 following a car accident that led to a brain hemorrhage on his very birthday. A heartbreaking end for the maestro of English football, who spent his life painting magnificent curves on the green turf. Kevan, position striker. Kevan, nicknamed the Tank, was England's main attacking spearhead at the 1958 World Cup. At 23, Kevan possessed a colossus physique and a powerful, bulldozing style of play. In the context of the team missing key strikers due to the Munich disaster, Kevan shouldered the goal-scoring burden and shone with 2 goals at the tournament. He was not a skillful striker, but his presence in the box was a constant threat to every defense. Kevan played with muscular strength and decisiveness, ready to batter through every obstacle to put the ball in the net. After the 1958 campaign, Kevan continued to be a fearsome scoring machine at the club level in the colors of West Bromwich Albion, Manchester City, and Crystal Palace. He scored hundreds of goals in English leagues, becoming one of the most effective strikers of the 60s. After retiring, Kevan chose a very ordinary life, far from the spotlight of the pitch. He worked in the lottery industry and later managed a pub in his hometown. Kevan was the type of person who never lived on the past. He accepted the rules of life and found joy in everyday labor. The contrast between a fiery tank on the pitch and a quiet, humble man behind the bar counter is a typical image of that generation of players. For Kevan, football was a job, and when the velvet curtain closed, he returned to being a devoted husband and father. However, the journey of this gentle giant also came to an end. On January 4, 2013, Kevan passed away at the age of 77. He departed carrying memories of powerful hold-up play, leaving an unforgettable longing for West Bromwich Albion fans. Bobby Robson, position inside forward/midfielder. Bobby Robson, the 25-year-old with the radiant smile, was one of the hopes for England in 1958. He played 3 matches in the tournament, bringing energy and intelligence to his play. Although his international playing career was not as massive as teammates like Finney or Wright, his tactical thinking and innate leadership qualities were revealed early on. Robson played with his head, always observing and analyzing, qualities that signaled the birth of one of the greatest managers in history. Indeed, Bobby Robson's greatest legacy lies not in the days he roamed the pitch, but when he put on the manager's suit after hanging up his boots. He took Ipswich Town from a tiny team to a European force. He led England to the 1990 World Cup semi-finals and guided big clubs like Barcelona, Porto, and PSV to glory. Bobby Robson was respected by the whole world, not just for his talent, but for his noble character. He fought lung cancer for many years but never let it extinguish his smile and passion for football. He established the Sir Bobby Robson Foundation, raising millions of pounds to help other cancer patients. Bobby Robson's life was a real-life fairy tale, where kindness and decency always won. He was called the Knight of Football, loved from Newcastle to Catalonia. In any position, he radiated positive energy and rare enthusiasm. But eventually, the final whistle blew on the most difficult match of his life. On July 31, 2009, Sir Bobby Robson passed away at the age of 76 after a long and brave battle with cancer. The entire football world bowed to bid him farewell, a legend who lives forever in the hearts of fans. Colin Macdonald, position, goalkeeper. Colin Macdonald was England's #1 goalkeeper at the 1958 World Cup. At 27, the Burnley keeper had a phenomenal tournament. He was voted by experts as the best goalkeeper in the world at that time, even surpassing the legendary Lev Yashin in some head-to-head matches. With lightning-fast reflexes and bravery in the face of collisions, Macdonald was the reliable stopper who helped England keep a clean sheet against the mighty Brazil of Pelé and Garrincha. His future seemed paved with roses, with a monopoly on the position in the Three Lions goal. However, fate was ironic and cruel. Just 1 year after the World Cup, on St. Patrick's Day in 1959, in a match for an all-star team, Macdonald suffered a severely broken leg after a collision. That injury permanently ended his top-flight career at just 28 years old. From being the best goalkeeper in the world, he was forced to retire from the pitch in pain and regret. Not collapsing, Macdonald turned to scouting and youth coaching, dedicating decades of silent service to clubs like Bolton and Burnley. Colin Macdonald's story is a typical tragedy of talent crushed by injury, but also a song of resilience. He did not blame fate, but chose to continue loving football in a different way. He lived his old age in the respect of the Lancashire football community. However, the legendary goalkeeper eventually had to rest. On January 8, 2021, Colin Macdonald passed away at the age of 90. His passing reminds us of an exceptional talent that once shone brightly in the Swedish sky. Don Howe, position, right back. Don Howe, the 22-year-old defender from West Bromwich Albion, was an interesting discovery at the 1958 World Cup. He played all 4 matches with amazing maturity. Howe was not the type of defender who only knew how to clear the ball. He played with his brain, judging situations, and covering intelligently. His performance at the tournament confirmed his status as one of the best fullbacks in England at the time. Howe's sharp tactical thinking from a young age signaled a future tied to the tactical board. After retiring due to a broken leg, Don Howe became one of the greatest coaches and assistants in English football. He was the brain behind Arsenal's 1971 double and was the right-hand man for England managers like Ron Greenwood, Bobby Robson, and Terry Venables. Don Howe was respected by professionals for his profound knowledge and ability to read the game masterfully. He spent his whole life studying and teaching football, mentoring countless generations of famous players and coaches. In real life, Don Howe was serious, dedicated, and always aimed for perfection. He lived a life without noise, avoiding scandals, pouring all his heart into coaching. He was the embodiment of exemplary professionalism. The journey of that tactical brain closed on December 23, 2015, when Don Howe passed away at the age of 80. The legacy he left was not just titles, but the tactical foundation that shaped English football for decades. Bill Slater, position, centre-back/defensive midfielder. Bill Slater was a special case in the 1958 England squad. At 31, he was an amateur player for most of his career before turning professional late. Slater played football alongside working as a physical education lecturer at Birmingham University. At the World Cup, he brought the calmness and wisdom of an educated man to his play. He started all 4 matches, acting as a safe stopper alongside Billy Wright. Slater's intelligence and ability to read situations helped him compensate for physical deficits compared to younger opponents. After the tournament, Bill Slater continued to have an illustrious career with Wolverhampton Wanderers, winning the FWA Footballer of the Year award in 1960. After hanging up his boots, he utilized his academic background to become director of sport at universities and later president of the British Gymnastics Association. He was also awarded the OBE for his contributions to sport. Slater's life is proof that football and education can go hand in hand and complement each other perfectly. Bill Slater was the model of a footballing gentleman who always maintained elegance and intellect both on and off the pitch. He lived a fulfilled life, successful in every field he participated in. However, the law of birth, aging, sickness, and death spares no one. On December 18, 2018, Bill Slater passed away at the age of 91 after a long period with Alzheimer's disease. His passing marked the end of a rare generation of intellectual players in football history. Bobby Charlton. Position, striker/attacking midfielder. Although in the statistical list, Bobby Charlton's minutes played were around 0. The presence of that 20-year-old boy in the 1958 England squad is the most moving story. Bobby was a survivor of the Munich Air Disaster, where he lost his closest teammates. The coaches decided not to use him at the World Cup due to concerns over the massive psychological trauma the young man was enduring. He sat on the bench, his eyes sad as he watched his teammates play, carrying the pain of the survivor and the promise to live for those who had passed. Overcoming that ultimate pain, Bobby Charlton rose to become the greatest legend of English football. He led the Three Lions to the 1966 World Cup title and took Manchester United from the ashes of Munich to the pinnacle of Europe in 1968. His hammer-like long shots and his comb-over hair became global symbols. Sir Bobby Charlton was not just a player, he was an ambassador, a gentleman respected by the whole world. His later life was always linked to memorializing the Munich victims and developing youth football. Bobby Charlton's legacy extends beyond the boundaries of the pitch. It is a story of resurrection from ashes. He lived an exemplary, humble, and compassionate life. However, in his final years, he faced dementia, the disease that stole the memories of many teammates of his generation. And then, the heart of that legend stopped beating. On October 21, 2023, Sir Bobby Charlton passed away at the age of 86. His passing was the greatest loss for English football, closing the final chapter on the heroic and tragic Munich generation. Tommy Banks. Position, left back. Tommy Banks, 28, from Bolton Wanderers, was a steel left back for England at the 1958 World Cup. He was famous for his aggressive style, fearlessness in collisions, and the fighting spirit of the working class. Banks was the type of player who made opponents flinch, a diligent plowman protecting the left flank. Though his technique was not flashy, his grit was the perfect piece for the Three Lions' defense that year. He played all 4 matches, facing the best wingers in the world without flinching. After his football career, Tommy Banks returned to the life of a genuine laborer. He worked in construction, participating directly in manual labor without minding the hardship. He retained the forthright, blunt, and humorous character of the Lancashire people. Banks often shared stories about the era when football was still primitive, where players played for joy rather than money. He was a vivid witness to a rustic and authentic football era. Tommy Banks's old age faced many difficulties as he had to deal with dementia, an occupational disease of many old generation players due to heading heavy leather balls. Nevertheless, he remained optimistic and was cared for devotedly by his family. But eventually, the journey of that rugged defender had to stop. On June 13, 2024, Tommy Banks passed away at the age of 94. He was one of the last members of the 1958 squad to leave this world, leaving regret for Bolton fans. Brian Douglas. Position, winger. Brian Douglas, the 24-year-old from Blackburn Rovers, was a lethal drill on the right flank for England. With speed, technique, and precise crossing ability, Douglas started 3 matches at the 1958 World Cup. He was a classic winger, always hugging the touchline and creating chances for the strikers inside. Loyalty is the key word when speaking of Douglas, as he dedicated his entire peak career to Blackburn Rovers with over 400 appearances, becoming a living legend of the club. After hanging up his boots, Brian Douglas did not leave football but continued to stick with his hometown of Blackburn. He opened a small business and lived a simple life with his family. Unlike many teammates who have passed away, Douglas was lucky to have relatively good health in his old age. He frequently appeared in the stands of Ewood Park to cheer for his beloved team, respected by young fans as a witness to history. Today, at the age of 90, Brian Douglas is still living a peaceful life in his hometown. He is one of the very few members of the 1958 England squad still alive to tell the stories of that Swedish summer. Although his steps are slow and his hair is white, the love for football in him has never extinguished. He is a living history book, the final bridge between the present and the glorious past of a golden generation. Eddie Clamp. Position, defensive midfielder. Eddie Clamp, nicknamed Chopper. It was the terror of every opposing midfielder. At 23, the Wolverhampton Wanderers player brought aggression and muscular strength to the England midfield. At the 1958 World Cup, Clamp played 3 matches, performing the task of cleaning up and contesting the ball fiercely. His style of play was sometimes criticized as too violent, but no one could deny the effectiveness it brought. He was the bodyguard, protecting artists like Johnny Haynes or Tom Finney so they could be free to create. After his football career, Eddie Clamp turned to business. He owned an interior decoration company and ran it with the same decisiveness he showed on the pitch. Clamp's life was quite vibrant, and he always maintained his strong, frank character. He was a family man, working hard to provide a prosperous life for his wife and children. The thorniness on the pitch helped him become a brave businessman in the marketplace. However, Eddie Clamp's fate was much shorter than many other teammates. He did not have the chance to enjoy a leisurely old age. On December 14, 1995, Eddie Clamp suddenly passed away at just 61 years old. His early departure was a shock to his old teammates at Wolves and England, leaving memories of a steel midfielder with a warm heart.